Get my 6. Just one of my many theories on him, her, it, or they. They don't like that idea of being taxed and regulated, so they've gone into hiding. But hey, what do I know? Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid and whatever the hell this channel's about. And yes, I intentionally said hell instead of heck there because we've got some housekeeping issues to talk about here today. I do have a very creepy story for you, one that'll probably make your skin crawl. It's not my story. It's a story that came to me by way of a complete stranger that my beautiful bride dearly, aka Giggly Girl, myself and our son met this summer while sitting around a campfire somewhere out west while on our amazing cross-country adventure that took us to the Grand Canyon, the Rocky Mountains, and all kinds of really beautiful places in between. Going to get to it. But first, the housekeeping. Apologize for the irregularity, still in editor's mode here, of my videos here as of late because I, again, like I said last time, am putting in 8 to 12 hours a day of edits and rewrites for October Nights Part 2, 31 more tales for the Halloween season. Halloween, of course, which will be upon us quickly. Still have plenty of copies of Volume 1. You can get them in print or Kindle on Amazon, or if you buy them from our Etsy store, the link of which is in the description box below, you can get an autographed copy that we'll send out to you. But I wanted to mention a couple of things. As you probably noticed, I have once again been a little more interactive with the channel than I had been in years, commenting back to some folks who leave comments. And don't be offended if I have not replied to your comment. It'll come in time, I'm sure. But I wanted to point this out. I pointed this out about 6 weeks ago. This is another reason. Part of my business model here with the channel has been to not comment on videos for a long time because basically you invite trolls. These vertically challenged individuals who hang out under bridges, who don't have the balls to put themselves out there, you know, and take a chance, take a risk, and just make videos and upload it on social media because they know that there are a lot of mean people out there because they themselves are mean people and they go after folks who do take a chance, take a risk, and tell them how ugly they are, tell them how fat they are, tell them how crazy they are, whatever. That's never bothered me because I have very thick skin. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I've spent time in places where people have tried to kill me for extended periods of time or kidnap my son for ransom for extended periods of time. Calling me names doesn't hurt me, but I didn't like how it detracted from the experience for our regular viewers and the trolls. Many of them I knew who they were. Recently just found out most of them, as I suspected, was actually blood relatives, dysfunctional, toxic, you know, who they write you off as dead when you're gone, but then when they see you resurrected in social media going viral and they see that you're living a very happy, joyous, and free life, well, they just can't have that, so they come at you. It's an Appalachian American thing. Some of you get it, most of you wouldn't. Some of them have actually died since, and the others, well, we know who they are and they takes out the poison, so whatever. But it's also been dangerous for viewers, not just that it lowers the quality of the experience on the channel, but I will say this again. I will never respond to a comment in which I ask you for your phone number or which I give you mine. Okay, there is a particular scam that goes on where there are these scammers who will, I don't understand the technology. I know how to hit record and I know how to upload and hit publish, and that's pretty much my knowledge of social media, but these people are good. They usually operate out of chat rooms in third world countries, but they can make it look like they're me. And let's say you're a faithful viewer, you've been watching for years, and it's like, oh my gosh, Crazy Lakes, give me his number, he's asking me for mine, or he's whatever. They try to build a dialogue with you, going back and forth, making you think that they're me, but they're not, and they're just going to ask you for money. I won't do that. I will, by all means, point out with no shame that we did finally activate the super chat option. So if you look underneath any of our videos now, there's a heart with a $sign in it. You can contribute to the channel anytime you want. You don't have to, and it doesn't bother me if you don't. If you want to guilt shame me for activating that feature and tell me I should be ashamed of myself, feel free. It has happened. And what I will do is I will summarily pray for you. I will pray that God brings you the same health, wealth, and prosperity that he, she, it, or they have brought myself and my family, because I truly believe that if people are content and happy and satisfied, they can't be bitter. And then I will summarily ban you. There's no room in my life ever for shame. There was in the past, but I got over that. Let me tell you, it's because of this. Do you know what the difference between guilt and shame is? Guilt is when you feel bad because of something you've done. Shame is when you feel bad about who you are. Hey, I am imperfectly perfect. I am the best me that I can be, and I will continue to strive to be just that. And I've got to be. Why? Because everybody else is already taken. And no, I don't feel guilty if you send me a super chat either. So send away, but only if your bills are paid and you can. Now, so watch out for that scam, okay? Number 2, and I'm pointing this out because part 2 of this is coming out soon. Maybe by the end of August, it will be in print. Even then, now listen, don't be tempted. If you get it, save it for October. It's called October Nights, not August or September Nights. And also, for the guilt shamers out there, listen, save it for mass, okay? Don't bring it around here. I do intend to read every single story from October Nights Part 2 during the month of October on the channel, just like I did Part 1 2 years ago when the book came out. Look, if you don't have the money to buy a book, and I know under Brandon's economy, it's difficult to come up with extra discretionary income. 9.1% inflation, gas prices through the roof. Wow, they're down now that our trip's over and we spent $1,200 on gas. Whatever, if we couldn't have afforded it, we wouldn't have taken the trip. But look, if you can't afford the book, we have a playlist here on our channel. Go find our playlist on our About page or whatever and find the list for October Nights. You can watch the videos where I read the stories from this book 2 years ago in that playlist. I will create that playlist again for Part 2 for those of you who can't afford or simply don't want to buy the book, who'd rather watch me tell the stories, as I read them. That's okay. Now, number 2. Recently had somebody, and I'm not trying to guilt shame this person because trust me, I don't dish out when we were at the campground in Omaha City, where was that? Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. We were at a KOA campground, and we were in the lodge, and they had like one of those really neat places where you could, like a book exchange, you could take a book and leave a book, or if you didn't have one to leave, you could buy a book for 50 cents. Well, we were in there trying to beat the heat. It was 100 degrees that afternoon, and we were tent camping. As a matter of fact, right now, even though as of this recording, it's 7:15 p.m. here in Virginia, it's still 94 degrees, but I'm in the shade. The humidity's not that bad, not near as bad as it was this morning when I was running, whatever, got it in. Just keep getting up a little earlier and earlier to do it, to try to beat the heat and humidity. But I found a book by one of my favorite authors that I didn't know existed, Michael Crichton. As you know, the creator of Jurassic Park, the hit TV show ER. I have read every book that man has written. Now, he died from throat cancer in 2012, but I saw this book called Dragon Teeth by Michael Crichton. I'm like, what's this? So I pulled it out. Turns out his widow found that old manuscript of his. He actually wrote it like 40 years ago. It predated Jurassic Park. And then she put it together and had it published in 2017. I'm halfway through it. I love it. But here's what brought that up. I think a lot like this guy, Michael Crichton. I'm flattering myself. Okay, let me say it this way. I really like the way he thinks because I can relate. He was talking about the way I believe it was it might have been a certain tribe of Native American Indians, because the setting is 1876. It's a story about these fossil hunters going out west into the new territory, the new Montana territory, to seek out fossils. And there were a lot of, this was right after Custer's Last Stand, Battle of Little Bighorn, a lot of animosity out there between the white settlers and the Native American Indians. And he was talking about how he was amazed about how one particular tribe hated whites so much, killed them up on sight. And he said, He couldn't understand. This was through the voice of a character, and this is pertinent because I'm going to get to this too here in a second with some of this housekeeping stuff. But then I promise you, I've got a very spine-tingling story coming for you. He never understood how people who had been mistreated because of something like their skin tone or their race or some other superficial reason, maybe sexuality, this would be modern terms, gender preference, identification, whatever, how they could, after that, treat others badly because they would know more than anybody based upon their own experiences of having been treated badly because of a superficial reason, how terrible it felt, and he couldn't understand why they would turn around and do it the same. So my point to that is there's no guilt shaming going on here, even though I spent the first 40 years of my life being guilt shamed before I finally said enough's enough and got those toxic effers out of my life and don't allow other toxic effers in who would do it. I am not going to point out what I'm going to point out for any way, shape, or form to guilt shame this person, and I won't mention their name. So I got a message on Etsy the other day by someone who said they had bought this book, Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Anthology 1. It's volumes 1 through 10, all put together in a big, giant 800-page collection, the largest collection of literature ever created on the subject of Bigfoot Sasquatch in the English language history. Yeah, I'm that guy. All right, so anyway, she said she had gotten it for her husband for Christmas, and he was trying to read it, but he can't. And she said trying is the key word because it was filth, and she wanted her money back. Well, I received this message while I was in the middle of doing writes and rewrites, and I just wanted to, listen, like I've said before, you can be right or you can be happy. I chose to be happy and get back to doing what is pertinent, which is rewrites and edits and not bicker back and forth. So I said, yeah, send me the book back. We'll give you a 100% refund. Well, she sent the book back, and I went in to give the refund, but so much time had passed on Etsy that they had closed the window from the time she purchased it until I got the book back. They had closed the window on me to be able to give her a refund. So I had to contact her, and I PayPal'd her the refund plus the shipping and all that because I'm a man of my word. I'm true to my word. But the book was in perfect condition. And I told him, I told my wife dearly, I said, I'm never doing this again unless if the book gets there destroyed or if they don't receive the book. And here's why. Listen, I write adult fiction, okay? Many of my stories I write, as you know, those of you who have read them, are PG rated, PG-13. But there are some out there that are rated R. And daggone, well, some of them would receive probably a not rated rating. They're not X or triple X because they're not pornographic, but they're not filth. I don't write filth. Again, I write adult fiction, but some of the adult fiction I write is filthy. Now, why is this? Several reasons. Number one, because stories have to be believable to be believed. And to think that we live in a world where everybody goes to church every Sunday morning and Sunday evening and every Wednesday night, never says a bad word, never has premarital sex, it would be artificial because that's not the world we live in. So I write stories that have real people, that have people who live realistic lives, and therefore there's going to be some foul language. There's going to be some adult themes, and there's going to be some adult situations. Listen, keep this in mind before you buy any book I have ever written or will ever write in the future, even though some of the early books, which frankly suck because I kept them PG rated because I was scared, I was timid, I was riding on eggshells, so to say, because OMG, what if so-and-so reads this? What if so-and-so reads this? What would they think if I dropped an F-bomb? Or what would they think if there was a sex scene? Guess what? Those books were terrible because, like I said, they were not believable. They just weren't believable. Okay? Because people use curse words. People fornicate. People commit adultery. All these things. Anyway, with that said, here's the second reason I finally came across the testicular fortitude to write believable fiction, because I was finally willing to take a chance because I was tired of sucking. Now, a lot of housekeeping going on here. You remember when I made a video from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, that morning when we were leaving, I said I was going to try to come out here and do something great. because I was inspired to do that after having visited the Muhammad Ali Center there in Louisville, Kentucky. Even after he was finished boxing, left the ring, and had come down with the Parkinson's, he still went out there and did great things. So what I want to do is I kind of want to help some folks out there who are among the working poor, not the idle poor, not the lazy, but people who actually work their butts off to the best of their ability and still come up short. I want to help you get to a better place. We've talked about getting rid of dead weight, like people you're carrying who really you shouldn't be. I mentioned that but the last video, I think last week, about maybe you have a domestic partner, a spouse who just doesn't do anything. They don't work. And not only do they don't work, they don't help you around the house. Maybe you've got a man child or a girl child, someone in their 20s or 30s who's still at home and doesn't contribute. And I told you the simple truth that a lot of you I don't think wanted to hear because you probably knew it anyway. You're not enabling them. You don't have a codependent relationship with them. You're a sucker. And you need to cut them loose like the albatross around your neck on a rope that they are if you ever want to. Okay, you're never going to be able to get ahead and take care of yourself if you're taking care of someone else who's perfectly capable of taking care of themselves, but chooses not to for whatever reason, be it because they like to indulge in alcohol or drugs or just because they've got a lazy bone, like all 212 of them, unless if they're the other gender, then it's 213. I think women have an extra rib or whatever. But enough of that. But listen, here's the third point of this. What was the first one? I don't know, whatever. The second one was cutting loose of dead weight. The third one is taking a chance, taking a risk. Look, you have got to take a risk. If you don't have any guts, how do you ever expect to get any glory? Okay? That's why I finally started dropping F-bombs in my books. That's why I finally started having adult themes with adult scenes. That's real life, and that's believable. And once that happened, once I crossed that great divide from writing children's fiction guised as adult literature to actually writing adult literature, boom, it blew up. It went bat crap crazy. And I'm going to keep doing it, okay? Is that me saying all those F words and the GD words and all that stuff? No, that's the voice of my characters because that's who they are. There's one story, I'm going to go ahead and warn you about it now, coming up in October Nights Part 2. It's a story called Let's Go Sue Somebody. It was originally titled The Unfortunate Demise of the Hillbilly Three. Yes, it's one of those stories so good that it's deserving of 2 titles. That thing is nothing but F this, GD that. I'm really going to have to consider whether or not I can read that one on this channel. I might not. But if you get the book, you can read it yourself. All right, so, and I want to give an example. This girl does not know me. She does not know I'm doing this, and there's no reason for me to tell you I'm doing it. But I'm going to use her as an example because people have said to me, oh, I wish I could YouTube and talk into my phone for 20 or 30 minutes a day and make a small fortune like you and then go hiking and swimming with my family and take these trips and blah, blah. Well, you can, brah. Grow a pair and do it. All right, so anyway, but then they have all these excuses. Oh, I don't want people to see how overweight I am. Or I don't want people to see how old I am. I mean, blah, 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 whatever. There's this girl in the Philippines named Jessa Dahl. Last name spelled D-A-H-L, like the children's literature writer Ron Dahl. Okay? Look, write it down right there. I will attempt to remember to put one of her videos on the end of this video. I always say that, but I always forget. This girl, listen, I think she's cute as a button. I think she's absolutely adorable. She's probably 30-ish. She's married to a guy, I think, well, there's a yellow jacket right here. Oh, flying around my leg. Am I going to have to do this again? Hey, Biggin. Hey, Biggin. I'll go get him later. Did you guys see that video I made the other night where I actually lured that black bear into coming and eating the nest of yellow jackets? I'm going to have to go get another bottle of honey and get him to come over here once I find this nest. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Well, listen. I guess a lot of folks didn't think she was cute as a bug's ear. I guess a lot of folks thought she was ugly. And she started a YouTube channel just a few years ago, and she did the same thing all the other young ladies her age were doing. She'd get on there and she'd put on her bikini and she'd dance to the music and try to look all sexy and try to get some views. Well, guess what? She was getting a lot of views. I'm not ignoring you. I'm keeping my eye on this here yellow jacket down here. Dang it, where's them black bears when you need them? When I was coming up here to make this video, I saw 2 red foxes slinking down the hill here together. Tried to get my phone out of my man purse there, man bag, but I couldn't get it out in time. They never saw me. They might come back through. I noticed the birds are getting quiet. Maybe Biggin heard me. Maybe he's coming around. So anyway, she started getting views. It's because people were laughing at her. They were clowning on her. They were calling her fat, saying, who do you think you are? You're not sexy. You're not even pretty. She didn't care. She was getting the views. This girl, I'm talking about working poor. She's third world poor. She's in the Philippines where they don't have a safety net of EBT cards and welfare and HUD housing. She was either going to be successful on YouTube and eat, or she was going to be not successful and go hungry. So she stuck with it. She kept going. She kept making content. She got her husband into the picture. Well, they started clowning on her too, because I guess there's a noticeable age difference between the two, much like me and my wife. I mean, it's obvious that with me and Dearly, there's a noticeable age difference, and there's a noticeable difference in level of attractiveness. We've never tried to hide it. It's obvious that she is way younger than me, okay? And it's obvious that I'm way better looking than her. But we've never tried to hide any of it. We've had the guts to put ourselves out there, and we've had the glory of success, and Jessadal did well. So listen, if you're trying to have a better life, you're trying to make something better for yourself, you got to be willing to take a risk. Get rid of any dead weight that's holding you back, which includes not just your deadbeat domestic partner or your deadbeat man child or girl child, but the deadbeat thoughts you have in your mind telling yourself all the reasons you can't do it. Those are excuses, and that was point number 1. Number 1 was excuses. Number 2 was unnecessary dead weight. Number 3, in this little lecture I'm giving, this series of lectures of how to become successful and how to exit the working poor, take a freaking chance. What do you got to lose? You're already poor. You know, you can go out there and you take a leap of faith, and one of 2 things is going to happen. You're either going to land on your feet, or you're going to learn to fly. Now, with this said, time for the creepy story, okay? And again, it's not mine. It's a story that was shared with us, and I'll keep it brief because I've already rambled for more than 22 minutes, and like the vertically challenged individuals who live under bridges like to tell me, now remember, I only work for 20 to 30 minutes a day, a few days a week, so I can't go over, can't be putting in overtime. That might make this look a little harder than it actually is in their eyes. So I met somebody this summer who had the story belongs to his father. He shared it with us. It was a common occurrence. It was a man whose son, my son was playing with at one of the campgrounds we stayed at. There were several kids playing, and Dearly and I had gone back to our campground and cooked at the fire and was eating some stuff there after dark. They were within sight of us, so we had our eyes on our son the whole time. It got to be a little bit late, so we went up there to get him and bring him back. And we sat and we were invited to sit around the fire with these wonderful folks for a while, and we just started talking, and it always comes up, what do you do? Well, yeah, I'm a YouTuber. Ha, ha, ha. No, what do you really do? Well, and I'm a writer. Ha, ha, ha. No, what do you really do? The only time they laugh more is when they ask where I'm from, and I say West Virginia. It's ha, ha, ha. Then I have to hear all the hillbilly jokes, whatever. Here's the thing about ghost stories. When you tell people you write that stuff, when you write about the supernatural, tales from the other side and whatnot, yeah, things just got creepy. I think something's listening, and I don't think it's biggin'. People will always laugh at you, and then they ask, do you really believe that stuff? Of course, you know my answer. I got this canned answer. It's potentially. It's not funny unless you watch the show here regularly. You know, it's kind of my key word. But once the laughter's stopped and everybody regathers themselves, most people have a story. The guy at the campfire that night, he said, you know, I have a story that's kind of creepy. My father told it to me just a couple of years ago. when I became a parent. So I guess it was maybe 8 years or so back, because his son was about 8 years old, just a couple years younger than our son. And he said it's not really paranormal related because it wasn't a woman's ghost he was seeing, but he said, I do believe it's supernatural because he was seeing her essence just before she died. And he said, I'd never heard my dad tell a story like this, so I have every reason to believe it's true. Here's the story. Basically, this guy's dad, he's probably my wife's age, about 34, 35. His father, who would probably be close to 60 now, had gotten a divorce from his mother when he was young, like mid-20s. He felt terrible about it. He suffered from extreme divorce guilt because he was a man of faith. I'm not going to say which religion it was, but I guess guilt, wink, wink, guilt shaming was kind of common to him, and in the house he had been brought up in largely because of the faith they practiced. And when he got divorced, because his wife was cheating on him, and he had 2 children, the guy that was telling me the story, and he had a sister a couple years younger than him, the man just felt terrible about it, and he felt that sense of shame. He was ashamed of himself. He didn't feel bad about the divorce. He felt bad about who he was because he had gotten a divorce. Folks, if I can't get this point across to you enough, I wish I could. This is wrong. People make mistakes. Life doesn't always work out the way we intended to. To feel bad about who you are because you're human, nothing good comes from that. That is not healthy. This story involves an auto accident, and I just heard, you rewind and listen if you didn't hear it yourself, what clearly sounded like a car horn out here in the middle of the woods. There are no cars out there, okay? And that's not tree knocks. Listen, if I know what I'm hearing or seeing, I give full disclosure. When you hear that boom, boom, that's my kid down there playing basketball. That's not a tree knock. But our truck's down there, not back here. Nobody's in my truck blaring on the horn, okay? So anyway, stop this guilt crap and stop guilt shaming others. Shame on you. Actually, no, guilt on you. Feel guilty about it, but get over it and then stop doing it, okay? Enough said. So anyway, the guy's dad, he was pushing 30. That's my kid dribbling basketball. When he met the most beautiful girl he had ever met in his life. She was about 26, a few years younger than him. She had never been married. She had no kids. And frankly, they fell head over heels for each other. But the guy had felt so bad, felt so wrong for having been divorced that he just never, not only did he never propose to her, he never even asked her out. And as a matter of fact, he said that the last time he had seen this girl, because she was getting ready to go off to take a job in another city, she actually tried to kiss him and he turned away. And it wasn't because he wasn't attracted to her, and it wasn't because he didn't have feelings for her, because he clearly did. It's just he felt so bad about having been divorced. He was a single father of 2 children. He felt like that was too much baggage to bring on to this beautiful young woman who he felt had every right to go out there and make the same mistakes that he had, or not, without him bringing this baggage. He said it would be many, many years before he realized that woman was an adult and she clearly was making a decision to be involved with this guy, but he didn't take the opportunity to do it. Well, the guy telling me the story said that later, when he was a teenager, he walked in on his father and he was crying. And he asked his dad, "Dad, why are you crying?" And he told him, he said, "Well, I just gotten word that an old friend of mine had passed away. She'd been in a car accident and she had actually been burned very badly. When you watch the movies, it looks like every auto accident ends in an explosion. And that actually happens very rarely. But in the case of this young lady, it actually had happened. She caught fire and she lived for a few weeks before she finally passed due to her injuries that she sustained in that accident and that fire." Well, Just a couple of years after that, the guy's dad did get remarried. He met a woman. He had been single for nearly a decade, but he had gotten past his guilt, shame, or whatever, and he took a chance. And he's still married to this woman today. The guy telling the story tells us. Well, when the guy telling the story became a father after he had gotten married and he had his son, he and his father would start talking about stuff they'd never talked about before. His dad would try to give him pointers on parenthood, some of the things he had done right, some of the things he felt he had done wrong. And the kid asked him, he said, "You know, Dad, I've seen you cry twice in my life." He had cried there at the wedding, and his wedding, the son's wedding, and he said, "I remember that time I walked in on you when I was maybe 8 or 10 years old, and you were crying, and you said you lost a friend. Can you tell me a little more about that?" And he says, "Well, I will." And he said, "You might not believe it." So he told him the story about the young lady that I'd already relayed to you. And he said after she had left, and he went through a period of getting over her, just as well as he had gone through a period of getting over the divorce and whatnot that he had recently gone through before that. But he said a period of many years had gone by where he just never even thought of her, 5 or 6 years or so. But all of a sudden he started having dreams about her. She was coming to him in dreams. And in the dreams, she looked as if she had been somewhat disfigured. And she was trying to say something, but he couldn't understand what it was she was trying to say. And so in his dream, it was one of those very vivid, very realistic dreams in which he felt as if he were awake. And so he would sit up in bed in the dream, but by the time he got up to a full sitting position in his actual bed, he would awaken and the girl was gone. And it was about a month or so after that he'd found out the girl had died. He'd found out how she had died. And he's convinced to this day, a man of 60 years old, even though this happened probably 20 some years ago, that her essence, it wasn't her spirit because she was not quite dead, but it was her essence, knowing she was about to go, trying to come to him for one last goodbye. If that story doesn't give you chills, I don't know what would. Actually, as a matter of fact, I do. Most of the stories in Anthology 1, all of the stories in October Night's 31 Tales for the Halloween Season Part 1, but nothing like the chills you're going to get when Part 2 comes out very, very soon. Get them on Kindle, or get them on Amazon and Kindle or print. Links in the description box below, as well as the Etsy link where you can get them with an autograph. See you for more next time. Got to get my man bag. And my camera.